Namaste everyone, this is Stephen from YogaWorks and welcome to your mini-series for Self-Myofascial Release. It's sometimes also called foam rolling or trigger point therapy, or it has a lot of different names. But in these 3 short, about half an hour sessions, what I want to show you is how you can just, with a few simple tools, a foam roller, a couple of massage balls or something similar, how you can get a really quick and effective little workout that sort of targets tissue that might have become a little bit stuck together. So foam rolling or myofascial release is really great for ungluing those layers of tissues that don't slide as well over each other. It works on the muscle but also on the connective tissue which surrounds the tissue, the muscles, and which sort of forms a whole layer of a whole network in the body that actually gives us our shape. And sometimes when these tissues get a little bit tight because of posture or habitual movements, then it's really great to unglue this a little bit. It's also great to increase your blood flow in the areas that we'll be working with, and also to improve your proprioception, that you are getting a better idea of where the muscles are, the areas of the body that we are working with, because there's going to be a very clear point of contact where your body touches the foam roll or the block or the balls or whatever we're working with at a time. What it is not good for, it's not a quick fix to quickly get flexible. This is the first thing that we must know. It might help in that process, but it's not sort of a magic solution. You roll out your hamstrings and suddenly you'll be able to do the splits or something. It needs to be done in accordance or together with a movement and yoga practice. So it's not a substitute in a more lazy way. You just roll around a little bit on the foam roller and you get magic results. This is not how things work. Also, it's not good if you have an injury or acute pain and then you're going to target that one specific muscle or body part. I wouldn't recommend to do this. It could form part of your recovery in that process, but I would say first get a decent medical opinion about your injury before you start to sort of self-medicate or do self-therapy with these kind of movements. We have 3 different parts. So today we're going to be doing the feet and the legs. They will be moving up to the hips and the back. And then in the 3rd little session we'll focus on the shoulders and the neck. And you'll see I've got some tools here. The first one is a foam roller, which is great to get a larger area, a big muscle, let's say the quads or the lats on the back, where you have a bigger surface area touching the foam roller. You see you've got a smoother side and a more pointy side on this one. There's lots of different types. Some are just more straight and even, which is going to work as well. And if you don't have any of this, you can just have a rolled up yoga mat or even a firm plastic drinking bottle, for example, to substitute this, or really a firm pillow might even work. So you don't need to rush off to the store, although I think this is really great little tool to have. And then the second thing I'm going to be using is a set. So there's 2 little balls here. They are made of firm rubber, so they give in a little bit, and they're tied together in this little bag, but you can also take them out and use them separately. Instead of this, you can also tie 2 tennis balls together, or use them separately as well. Or if you don't have tennis balls, then there's a golf ball, a cricket ball, a lacrosse ball, whatever is sort of near and approximates this shape and texture is a really good start. There's also a few of the movements where we'll be able to use a yoga block instead of the foam roller, or sometimes instead of this. But I'd recommend to have something that vaguely looks like this as you're getting started, and as you feel that this is good for your body, you may want to invest in a set of balls. They're not expensive at all. So let's get started with our feet and legs. So for the first one, take a single ball, tennis ball, whatever you have, place it on the mat in front of you, and then we're going to be pressing with just behind the ball of the foot on that ball so that the toes curl over it and the heel is down on the mat. And then just a few times I'm leaning forward and leaning back, leaning forward and leaning back. And as I'm leaning forward, I'm pressing weight down on the ball of that foot into the ball underneath me. And you feel the ball is gently pressing up and digging a little bit into the tissues at the bottom of the foot, which can become quite restricted and tight, especially if we wear shoes a lot. Or if we don't move a lot, if we sit a lot, then obviously the feet are not very active. So you might feel that. We'll stay on the same foot, just roll the ball a little bit back, and now place the toes down and dig down just behind the heel. So still around the center of the foot, but a little bit more towards the back of the foot. And the heel is just over the ball. And again, I'm just transferring some weight and pushing down as I lean forward and back. And you'll feel how much weight you can transfer safely onto that ball. With all these movements, we're not trying to go very fast, we're not trying to create a very big sensation. We're just trying to get to know our body a little bit better. And then a few times roll from the toes to the ball of the foot, to the middle of the foot, to the heel, and then just tap the ball back. So we're trying to go in one direction, so go harder as you go forward, soft as you go back. A few times. This is more for the flow of lymph in the bottom of the foot. We want to encourage it to go in the direction of the heel, so it can flow out the back of the leg, which is the direction that it follows. And then a few times just sort of scribble really lightly around all parts of your foot. Really light scribbling, side to side, front to back. And then for a moment, just stand with both feet flat in a mountain pose and just feel the awareness of your right foot on the mat and the left. And then feel the feeling in both legs, the right leg and the left leg. And maybe compare them after just having done one side. And often you feel the side where you have rolled out the sole of the foot feels a bit more alive, a little bit more vivid. And then let's even it out at the second side. So the first one is just behind the ball of the foot. We're pressing down, let the toes curl over the ball and the heel stays down. The Chinese call that point the bubbling spring. And a couple of times leaning forward, leaning back, transferring a bit of weight as much as feels good for you. And all of this depends a little bit on your sensitivity and maybe also the hardness of that ball. If it's harder, it's going to be a bit more sensitive usually. The one I use is quite rubbery and soft. And then roll the ball a little bit back. And now I'm placing the heel just over the ball and I'm digging the ball into just behind the heel. And a couple of times pressing down, leaning weight onto that point. We're not moving fast, we're not creating huge sensations. We're just exploring, moving with skill and precision, and not just doing a couple of reps, because you could be doing this for a long time and not achieving very much. But if you do it with precision and with skill, then you really feel the difference. And then a couple of times, roll from the front of the foot to the back, applying a bit of pressure, and then tap the ball back without pressure. Rolling forward, pressing, rolling back, not pressing. Takes a little bit of practice. You can go a little bit more on the inside of the foot, a little bit more on the outer edge. Try to get all the sides. And then just lightly scribble a few times. Nice. Then you can place that off to the side. Then you can take your foam roller for the next one, which is the calves. So sit down with the foam roller in front of you and just place both calves on the roll. And you may not feel very much at all yet, but if you just rest the weight of the legs on the roll, then you might already start to feel some sensation. And if you can't feel a lot just yet, then just lift the hips up a little bit. And now the calves have more pressure down. And just go a little bit forward and a little bit back. A little bit forward and a little bit back. So we're more on the upper part of the calves to start with. More the belly of the muscle, a little bit closer to the knee. And then find a point, you can set the hips down, find a point in the belly of the muscle where it feels a little bit tender, but nothing impossible. And then just a few times point and flex your feet. Point and flex. And then make circles. And circle the other way. You don't need much on each point. We spend about 30 to 60 seconds. That's enough to make a difference. And then roll, you can just slide your hips a bit back. So now you're more in the lower half of the calves. Might feel quite different. Again, you can lift the hips up for a little bit more pressure down on the roll and roll forward and back a few times. Just feeling there's some sensitive points there in the middle of the calf. It's called trigger points. And if we hit them, sometimes it feels very sensitive. So go a little bit softly, especially when you're new to this. And then find a point, a second point now in the lower half of the calves, and point and flex. Point and flex. A couple of times. And then roll the ankles around. Keeping the legs heavy on the roll and roll the other way. And I'll just show you one more option. If you want a little bit more weight even, then you can place one calf on the roll and have the other leg on top. This is quite a lot of pressure with the weight of that other leg. So it might be too much for you. You can also just do one leg at a time. So just play around with this and find what works. And then the other side, just with the leg of that weight. Or if it's too much, keep that leg off and just observe for a moment. Let the weight of the legs rest on the roll. Nice. And then right leg on the roll. We're just going to roll onto the right hip, so onto your side. You can go onto your elbow. And now we're targeting the muscles on the just next to the shin. Don't roll on the shin because that would be really painful. And this is your first option, just staying here. Or if you want a little bit more, you can lift the hips slightly and gently roll up and down a few times. And you can roll a little bit more down with the foot and a little bit more up, so you get a slightly different angle that you hit with this. And then find a point and a few times flex and point. And slowly release. We'll stay on the same side and now move the roll just above your knee. Not on the knee, but just above. And again, we'll lift up and then place your feet down, almost like you're in side plank, and just point and flex. So the movement of the feet are creating a little bit of movement over the roll, but not much, just above that knee on the outside edge of the leg. And then relax the hips down. And then this one is really nice. If you just walk the legs out, keeping the legs heavy, the outer knee on the roll here. And this is the bottom of your IT band. It connects the outer hip to your outer knee. Often a problem area with runners or cyclists, or just sitting too much. And it's really painful if you roll out the middle of the IT band. I wouldn't recommend it at all, because you wouldn't get a lot of benefit from it and a lot of discomfort. But this is a good one to just loosen up those tissues. Nice. Release that. Let's do the other side. We'll have the shin first, or the side of the shin, not on the shin, remember? So I'm going on my left side, and the outer left lower leg is on that roll. And I can't remember if I have my leg in front or behind, doesn't matter. But I'm gonna roll a little bit. You can lift the hips, or if that's too much, keep the hips down and keep smaller movements. You can always modify. I would recommend you do that for your body. And you can roll the toes a little bit down, so get closer to the front of the shin, and roll the toes a little bit up, so you're going a bit on the side of the calf. And then choose a point, maybe somewhere in the middle, to rest the hips down, and then point and flex. So with the movements here, we're creating a muscle activation, which then the outer layers, like your skin and just below that, are pinned down by the roll. And the lower layers, the muscle is moving, so we're creating a bit of movement in between these layers that often get a little bit stuck. Let's move the roll up so that it's just above the knee. And then again, in a sort of side plank, we're placing the feet down, flexing the feet and pointing them. So you're going to be rolling a tiny bit up and down, a couple of centimeters. It's not much at all. It's a small movement. A couple of times. And then lower the hips down. Here comes the little moonwalk. This is one of my favorites. So the knees stay together. Rest them down on the roll and just walk. And just picture or visualize those tissues in the outer knee and coming from the hip, gliding over each other and becoming a little bit more free to move as they should. And then slowly release that. Nice. Next is the hamstrings. We're going to be doing the hamstrings in two different ways. The first one is to just place the roll just behind where you're sitting with knees bent, and then straighten the legs a little bit more, or actually all the way, so that your hips start lifting up, and then just roll a little bit forward and a little bit back. And just try to find a spot where you can really rest your weight down. If some of these are quite mild for you, then that's good. It's a good sign. And if some of these are really strong, then you can always find a bit of a milder option. Like for example, here you can just rest the heels down just to take some pressure off from the hamstrings. A couple of times, moving forward and back. And then find another spot. So I'm just walking a bit forward, so I can roll all the way to the sit bones and all the way to behind the knees. So you can choose a few different spots. Allow the weight of the body to rest down. And then one more spot. Now I'm going to go a little bit closer to the knees for this last one. So choose a third little area to work with. So that's what the foam roller is good for, a broad, big muscle area that we want to get into. And then release the legs down. Now slide the roll closer to your hips And we're going to be lying down here. Just lie down on your back. And let the weight of the legs just relax on the roll. And then straighten the legs a bit. And then roll the legs around. So you can move them side to side. Both feet left, both feet right. Just rolling a bit so you get a little bit of the inside and the outer hamstring. There's 3 hamstrings. So visualize this in your mind. And then find one more spot. You can roll up or down a little bit, and again, wiggle the legs. So the skin stays in place, more or less. It's pinned down by the roll, and the hamstrings are moving underneath. So we're trying to untangle these different layers of the body, and they get a little bit glued together, especially if we sit a lot, that we sit on the hamstrings, as you can imagine. And then just rest the legs for a moment. And then slowly come back up. Nice, now turn onto your belly and place the roll somewhere halfway your mat. We'll be moving onto the quads. Another area that gets really tight from our sitting. And I'm starting the middle of the quads and just rolling a bit towards the hips and a bit towards the knees. So with both legs, if possible, try to keep your feet lifted to have the weight of the legs completely on the roll. And otherwise I'm in a sort of a forearm plank. If that's too much, just have your toes down and then you can support yourself a little bit with the feet, helping to roll forward and back. But if it's possible, see if you can point your toes and rest the quads on the roll. And then find a spot somewhere, maybe in the middle, the belly of the muscle, where it feels a little bit tender. And then a couple of times bend and straighten the legs. Bend and straighten. Nice. Now shuffle a little bit left so that your left leg can just bend and you only have your right leg on the roll. And now this one can be a little bit more intense, otherwise the weight is distributed over the 2 legs. But for this one, all the weight is going to be on that one quad on the right this time. So if this is too much, then return or continue with the 2 legs as we've done before. But if it's available, then try this one. Resting down, have a weighted quality of your body on the foam roll as you gently roll forward and back. Don't go too fast because that would negate any benefits that we get from this. And then choose a second spot. So now I'm rolling a little bit more towards the knee, just above the knee, not on the knee. So the lower part of the quad, so just see where you end up. And then choose a spot, again, that seems to need a little bit of attention. It will let you know. And a couple of times bend and straighten. This one is quite sensitive for me, so I'm going slowly. I'm feeling my body is happy to do this. And as I said before, we don't need very long. 30 to 60 seconds in a position is enough. Choose one more spot to rest and then bend and straighten. And if the movement is too much, then just stay in a still position, resting a little bit of weight on the roll. And then let's swap legs, so the left quad on the roll and the right leg up to the side. I'm rolling up and down in a sort of forearm plank with my arms, but try to rest as much weight as you can onto the roll. moving in a way that is meaningful. And also picturing those tissues, the quads. The quads are 4 strong muscles that are at the front of the thigh. They straighten the knee and they lift, they flex the hip, amongst other functions. And just give it some loving attention. And then I'm sliding a little bit up to get the lower part of the quads. And just feel what this is like. Sometimes there's a bit of a trigger point just above the knee. Sometimes the muscle straight down the middle, the rectus femoris, gets extra tight from long periods of sitting. So that one might be talking to you now. And sometimes if you roll a little bit more on the inside or the outside of the leg, you might get a slightly different angle or one of the quads that might be a bit tighter for you. And then hold in one point and bend and straighten that knee. A couple of times. And then choose a second point. I'm going to go a little bit higher up towards the hip. And then again bend and straighten. Unrushed. Just feeling your body. This practice is also great as a cool down after training session. Or as a warm-up, but if you're warming up for a race or something where you need to perform at a higher level, then I would just do a little bit of this and not go too deep. You don't want the muscles to relax too much before your game or your race. And then slowly release. So we've done the soles of the feet, we've done the calves, we've done the shins, we've done the hamstrings, and we've done the quads. And now there's one big muscle group we haven't addressed yet in the legs, which is the adductors. So the insides of the legs. So the best way to do this is to place the roll parallel to your body and to bend your knee so that the inner leg is resting. Now, if you want less weight, then I would be a little bit higher up and supporting more weight onto the elbow as you roll. If you want more weight, then you can lie down a little bit more so that this leg is pushing down more onto the roll. And then again, roll up and down a few times. Nice and slow, feeling your way through this process. And giving some attention to these muscles that are sometimes in one place or position for big parts of the day. So if they're complaining, they might have a good reason actually. A couple of times rolling, and then just be still for a moment and lift and lower your right foot. So with the leg still resting down on the roll, and you get slightly different angles of those muscles, and you're practicing internal rotation. And just choose one more spot. I'm going to slide a little bit closer to the groin. You can also go a little bit closer to your knee, but don't go on the knee. And resting as much weight as I'm able to on the roll. And if it's too much, remember you can support yourself higher up on your elbow to take some weight off. And again, hold it in one point that feels like it needs a little bit more attention. And then again, lift and lower the right foot, the lower leg. So you're rotating your thigh bone in the hip sockets. Release the movements, hold still for a moment. and then slowly come up. I'm just going to turn around to the other side so you can see. And now the left lower leg will go in the roll. The right leg is straight-ish, and I'm starting sort of halfway, maybe a little bit more towards the knee, and less weight for less weight. Just stay a little bit higher up, and then there's more weight in the arms, in the upper body. For more weight, if you want more pressure, then you can lie down more and really let that leg press down on the roll. A couple of times, feel strong muscles in the inner thighs. Often a place it's a little bit overlooked in our practice. And then hold one point and lift and lower the left lower leg. You feel you're hitting different angles of those adductors in the inside of the thigh. And then choose a second point. I'm going to roll a little bit closer to the hip for me, but you can choose what works for you. And then I'm rolling the left inner thigh almost to the groin. And then stop at one point, and a few times lift and lower, lift and lower. And then release the movement, just rest on the roll. And then release the roll to the side and just lie on your back for a moment and just feel. Feel from the toes down the soles of the feet. Feel the heels, the calves. Feel the shins, all the connective tissue, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles. Feel behind the knee and the hamstrings up to the sit bones. Feel the front of the thighs from the knee to your hip points and the outer legs. Remember the IT band that we got into. And feel the inner thighs equal attention to all the body parts. And feel sort of an aliveness in the lower body from the waist down just after this practice. Feel free to stay a little bit longer in Shavasana, just to rest for as long as you would like. I would recommend it. And thank you for practicing with me. Namaste.